All right, Shalom. I'd like to start off by saying, Ka Halayim La Yahweh, Ba Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ba Hashem Harikak Wadash Ma'amah. Double honor to the elder apostles, the great millstone, and my elder Heroin as well. Salutations to the icon that are pushing this truth to sincerity and truth. And peace and blessings to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh Ba Hashem Yahweh Shai. All right, I'm Khanak Sa'am by Yasharala from the Lions in the Yasharala camp. And this one right here is going to be like a little spiritual hydration, man. And the spirit led me to uh, the topic of being in solitude. You know, I was getting ready to pick up my children from their mom's house, and I just had like a daydream or a vision of me and my kids. I got a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, and me being like, it was like the scenery, like all hell breaking loose on Earth, and we were like out in a remote place in a tent, right? And while we were in that tent, I saw myself writing as if like I was one of the prophets in the scriptures, like writing like my life, or at that point in time being with them, and it was like a sense of solitude, right? And then from that, I envisioned like I was like I had another like daydream of like uh, the book of Eli when after he was hunting for the cat and all that other kind of stuff, sitting by the fire, he was reading the scriptures, right? You know, so now like if you take that in the spirit, we were those prophets in the past, and we were put in solitude by Yahweh by Shem Shai, right? And the spirit compelled us to write about our journey. You know, I believe that the men of the Lord that are out here on the highways and byways now are the same ones in the scriptures, whether they were Isaiah, Jeremiah, that really doesn't matter. But we were there in those times doing the same thing we're doing now in solitude, you know, doing the will of Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai. And there's so much power in solitude, and, to where, like, if you focus on being in solitude, if you could be separated from everybody else in a room full of people and feel alone in a room full of people, that's not a bad thing. See, they look at it as if you feel that if if you feel alone, they feel like, oh, that's a sign of depression, but really it isn't. All right. If you're able to do that, isolate yourself in front of a group of people, that's something that should be embraced, because that means you have a solid path or a solid journey that you're trying to go on and you're trying to succeed, right? And that solid journey, you know, you're not compelled to be distracted because you're in solitude mentally. That's why the scripture says, flee ye out of the midst of Babylon in the book of Jeremiah, you know? So even though we're surrounded by chaos, but in order to being able to be one track minded and be still, that's what it's going to take. And as we write our books now, meaning doing these lessons, as we scribe the things that we're going through now, our experiences with the Lord, we're doing the same thing, and we have to maintain that sense of privacy or solitude. All right. So solitude, the definition of solitude is, all right, the state or situation of being alone. All right. So when we're alone, um, you know, we're with Yahweh by Shem Yahushai. Even when we're together amongst brothers, we are one unit that's in solitude. And another word for solitude is solemn, like a solemn assembly. You know, it's like, you know, even though we're together, we could have 1,000 brothers in one area. If they're all in the like mind, under the mind of Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, that is one being isolated from everything else on this earth, being in solitude. All right. Similar words as loneliness, solitariness, remoteness, isolation, seclusion. All right. We're supposed to seclude and ourselves from this world, man. It says retirement, withdrawal, purda, privacy, man, privateness, peace, peace and quiet, man. Meaning being quiet, being still. Only hearing the words of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Only hearing the calls of our shepherd. Us as being the sheep. So even though we're in the world amongst the people, right? All right. Let me find the scripture real quick. All right. Um, uh, Slack it real quick. All right, just John 15 and 19. It said, "If you were of the world would love its own, because ye are not of the world, but the world have chosen. But I have chosen you out of the world. Therefore, the world hated you." So we're isolated. The world separates us from them, so we ought to separate ourselves from that. You know, Romans 12 and 2, it says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of Yahweh." You know? So, you know, being in solitude, separated from this world, you know, we are of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. You know? So, creating that separation or being in solitude is ultimately being separated from everything else. And when we get to that point and really truly understand that point, why we're being isolated, then we know that so we're not subject to distractions because we know nothing else matters, man. Anything outside of what's in our confined space or what's in our peace or what's in our privacy or what's in our solemn assembly or what's being isolated. Um, Another word is um, going back to the peace and quiet, right? Anything that disrupts us from that, right, doesn't matter. But sometimes we get confused and get caught up in the mix and thinking that something matters when it really doesn't, you know? This is 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Thou therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, and the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses. The same commit unto faithful men who shall be able to teach others also." So now calling others into that, you know, solemn assembly, you know, being isolated from everything else, being in solitude amongst the fold, amongst the church, you know. It says, verse 3 says, "Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier." And the word soldier comes from the word solitude, all right, of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, you know. Let me get so within that, the hardness that we endure, because that separation creates conflict and persecution from the world. Because that's why it says, "Ye are not of the world." That's why the world hated you. Because if you were of the world would love his own. You know? John 17 and 16, it says, "They are not of the world, even as I'm not of the world." So Yahweh Shai was separated from the world, man. It's like you go to verse 14, it says, "I gave them thy word," right? The same words from the beginning. And the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. So that separation, that solitudeness that we feel, they want us to feel like that's depression. No, they want us to feel like, "Oh, you ain't a part of us, da 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 da." You know, that goes all the way back to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3. or chapter 2, 1, 3 or 2. All right. 1 Timothy 2 and 3, it says, that thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Yahushua HaMashiach. No man that warreth entangle himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who have chosen him to be a soldier. So we are chosen to be separated. We are chosen to be isolated from everything else in this world, man. And while the world tries to make you seem isolation is negative or is a bad thing, we have to understand and realize that isolation and separation that we feel is of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and that's exactly what that He wants. So we could be separated from the world as He is separated from the world. All right, I just wanted do the little spiritual hydration. While it was on my spirit, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying and served its purpose. With that, I'd like to say Ka Halayim La Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem Habrikah Quadash Ma'amath. Double honors to the elder apostles, the great millstone, and my elder Heroin as well. Salutations to the archon that are pushing the truth to sincerity and truth, and peace and blessings to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai.